Welcome into Rogue Football. I'm your host, Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here today. We have got our Philadelphia Eagles 2024 7-round mock draft fired up to get into it. Shout out to Paige, Justin, and Stevie up there in Philly. Love y'all. Shout out to Jason Kelce. What a career. The GOAT center, such an awesome guy and awesome football player. The NFL will miss him, and so will the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, they do have a replacement plan in place, certainly, for Jason Kelce. Not going to be the same level of intensity on or off the field, but they do have their ducks in a row when it comes to the center position. The Eagles are a team looking at their cap space. They have $34 million. They could still be active in free agency as we move forward into kind of like wave 2 and wave 3. You've heard a lot of buzz about Hassan Reddick, a potential deal to trade him. What will they do there after re-upping with Josh Sweat, signing Bryce Huff? It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out for them, certainly. Still some moving parts with the Philadelphia Eagles prior to the 2024 NFL draft, I would guess. But this is still a very good roster overall, right? Obviously, they had the magical run all the way to the Super Bowl, couldn't quite get it done. Last year wasn't quite as exciting, the follow-up to the Super Bowl year, but still an 11-6 football team. I do think the addition of Saquon Barkley absolutely raises the ceiling of this team. I think he's the type of guy in this environment that could thrive. I think looking at the secondary, you got CGJ back to kind of play some nickel, some safety, but you're still aging on the outside at corner for sure. There's no doubt about that. You could look to infuse some youth there. I think you could try to upgrade the interior of the offensive line. I mentioned you have your center in place, but at right guard, I think, you've got Tyler Steen, who maybe could be a starter. I liked him a little bit in the draft, but I don't think you're sold on him necessarily being the answer. You could try to upgrade safety, but Reed Blankenship, pretty good football player. CGJ will play some safety. Sidney Brown I loved in the draft, so you don't necessarily have to upgrade at safety. Linebacker, you bring in Devin White, who isn't looking like the same player you thought he was earlier in his career. Still don't know what you have in Nakobe Dean at linebacker, who you drafted a couple years ago. So yeah, I definitely think you could be looking at upgrading at linebacker, trying to find one of those guys that can really make a big difference for you. When I look at Howie Roseman and the way he does his job, it's all about playing on market inefficiency, draft inefficiency. So that's what we're going to try to do here. Basically, in short, finding value at every pick. Currently, the Eagles have 8 picks. 22 is the first pick in the first round for the Eagles. You have 2 second-round picks, no third-round pick, but you do have 2 fifths. So let's go ahead and get it going here at 22 overall. I think trading back could represent some serious value. I think you could land that third rounder potentially that you don't have by moving back. I think the Cardinals would be in a really interesting position to move up because they have 3 third-rounders, I believe. If there's someone that they covet, earlier in the 20s than where they are, you could move back and get that third back. And of course, there is some familiarity with these two staffs. So I think that could work. So I'd like to see them do that. But regardless of whether they're picking at 22 or 27, for the sake of this mock draft, we'll say it's at 27 overall. I love the idea of adding Johnny Newton. I know a lot of folks want a corner here at this spot, but think about this. Jalen Carter and Johnny Newton, they both have the strength, the leverage to play the run. They can go out there and play the run at the same time and be good against the run. But they can dominate as interior pass rushers, as interior penetrators. Jordan Davis, honestly, has not been what you hoped so far. But you could create maybe like the greatest mismatch of interior rushers, the greatest duo of interior rushers in the NFL for years to come. If you pair Johnny Newton with Jalen Carter, I think that would be fantastic. I think that would be a way to capitalize on what the draft presents to you and a way to potentially, again, create an inefficiency where you just have an all-star duo of interior pass rushers, of guys that opposing offenses simply cannot block when they're on the field together. And again, you've got good edge players. I think that would be fantastic for the Philadelphia Eagles. Gets me excited just thinking about how nasty that pass rush could be once again. At 50 overall, your first pick in the second round here, Lane Johnson is not going to play forever. As I mentioned, Tyler Steen, he's kind of penciled in as the starter right now at right guard. I think Kingsley Suamataia could make a ton of sense here for them. Doesn't have to start in year 1 for them, but could push Tyler Steen at right guard, certainly. Eventually could take over at right tackle. But this is a super athlete. He's young, great size, long arms. He's almost 330 pounds. Needs some development. hey, give him to Jeff Stoutland and let him get to work. I think you're going to see some great results there. At 53 overall, just a few picks later, another guy who probably should come off the board way earlier. We're going to take a swing, try to upgrade linebacker with Peyton Wilson, potentially get one of the most talented young linebackers in the league. He's had some injury history, a lot of injury history, but he can fly. He's a super athlete. He's instinctive. He's a playmaker. I would love it here. You take a big swing and you try to turn what is kind of a question for your football team right now into a strength. And I think Peyton Wilson has the potential to do that. At 90 overall, I do still think you want to find some youth at cornerback. I know a lot of people probably would have liked to see somebody come off the board earlier, but the way this draft has been falling just hasn't made sense yet. But DJ James, he reminds me a bit of a young Darius Slay. Darius Slay was certainly a bigger player in terms of mass, but in terms of their size, their length, the way they play the game, the way they see the game, the fluidity, the playmaking, the ball skills, the ball production. I think I'd love to have DJ James learning from Darius Slay in year one and eventually becoming a starter for the Eagles. I think that would be a perfect fit. At 120 overall, wide receiver Malik Washington. He is such a stud. There's no way he should be a day 3 pick. He's a short king, which is why he could slip down boards, but he's the kind of receiver that they don't have right now. They've got some bigger guys. Devontae Smith has length. Obviously A.J. Brown is a bigger receiver. They brought in Devontae Parker, but Malik Washington, he's only 5'8.5", but he is 190 pounds. So he has mass on his frame. He kind of turns into a running back after he gets the ball in his hands, and you can get him the ball in those quick ways, the jet sweeps, the screens, all that fun stuff. He is a yak guy, but he also has elite hands, elite body control, very good change of direction, super athletic. I think he could be a 3-level threat for the Eagles. And when you talk about dropping him into an offense that already has A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and, of course, Dallas Goedert at tight end, he doesn't have to be a feature guy. You can use him as a weapon. That makes a lot of sense to me, and I think that could help put the Eagles offense over the top. And so could 161 overall here. Tight end Jaheim Bell could really thrive in this offense as an auxiliary weapon. At this price point, it just makes too much sense to drop him in here and see how he can work. And so I think adding 2 guys like Malik Washington and Jaheim Bell could give this offense some serious juice. At 171, Bo Braid out of Maryland. He can be a defensive utility knife for you in the secondary, can play anywhere that you could think of for a nickel or a safety, eventual replacement for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson type of player, could probably get on the field and make some plays for you early on in his career as well. At 172, just one pick later, Nelson Caesar out of Houston. Keep refreshing the edge talent, in my opinion. He's got a bag of pass rush moves, a really nice inside spin counter, good size, good athleticism, good production, good length coming out of Houston. So this is the type of value pick I love right here. And then at 210, going back to the well at Illinois, double dipping on Illinois defensive lineman, Keith Randolph. I think he can be a versatile guy up front for you, can definitely play the run. I think he has more pass rush juice than you saw at Illinois with his role. I think you could use him more as a 3-tech type of player. I love the swing here, getting someone that's familiar with Johnny Newton, someone that has had a lot of success at the college level and certainly could improve the depth overall of your defensive front. And that's a draft class, man. So much talent at so many spots for the Philadelphia Eagles. I could definitely see something like this for Howie Roseman. Feels like an Eagles draft if I have ever seen one. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you're an Eagles fan, please drop a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this mock draft. And if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Y'all have a good one.